are 3 nice things about you? So, my morning meditation today asked that question. It was early, so it's kind of the gist of it. But in some manner, she's like, think of 3 nice things about you. Now, I am kind of embarrassed to say that I struggled totally. And I like to think that I'm pretty kind to myself. I think good things about myself. I tell myself positive affirmations daily. I avoid negative self talk. And yet, when I was prompted, I struggled. I didn't struggle to come up with them so much as I struggled with adding qualifiers on. So, like, I'm dedicated. Yeah, but I'm kind. Yeah, but I'm thoughtful. Yeah, but I'm a hard worker. Yeah, but I could always find some reason to dispel what I was saying. So even that early in the morning, and with me being half asleep at the time, I had no problem at all debating myself and my good qualities, for sure. So that's apparently what I'm working on today, removing that yeah, but. Funny how we don't add that on to the negative things that we think about ourselves, right? Or the negative things that we think about others. We're not like, I'm forgetful. Yeah, but he's lazy. Yeah, but the house is a mess. Yeah, but wow, we sure do think positive things about ourselves, and it's almost instinctual to add those on. So today, maybe y'all can do this with me. Let's remove those yeah buts that disqualify our positives. And maybe let's instead move them over to those negatives. So when we think something unkind about ourselves, what if we added the yeah but there to make it positive? Or when someone around us annoys us or frustrates us, what if we added the yeah but there instead? I mean, it's worth a try, right? Hey guys, it's Jen. This is another episode of Reframing Me, and I am your host, Dr. Jennifer Brubaker. So, because I have brought y'all along on this multi-months long journey towards my oldest making his college decision, I felt like I should fill you in on where we're at now that the decision deadline has passed. I mean, he literally waited until the day of the extended deadline. Like it was a genuine game day decision. Well, I am very happy to share that he has decided to become a Seahawk and join my university, the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. So we will be very happy to get to keep him nearby. He will live on campus, so that will be a great opportunity for independence for him, but he'll be like 8 minutes away from home, so that will be quite lovely for us. Obviously, I think it's a fabulous school. I mean, I've taught there for almost 18 years, so duh. I know what the students are like, and I think it will be a great fit for him. He has a scholarship, which is, of course, lovely, but I will say it was quite a surprise to me. I never thought he would end up choosing UNCW, but he did. And funnily enough, my husband told me that I was pushing state on him. So obviously, it's not like I tried to persuade him to stay here. Well, today we are going to have a conversation on something that I feel like I need to remind myself quite often, and I definitely need to remind my husband pretty much on the daily. And I remind other people so often because I feel like it's the answer to a lot of our frustrations. So to start off, I mean, the forgetfulness, right? I feel like my children, they are the most helpful kids in their heads. Like they have the best of intentions to be helpful. I truly believe that they intend to do the things that I ask. However, they 100% lack the follow through. Can you take out the trash, please? Yes, ma'am. Can you bring my shoes downstairs? Of course. Can you put waters in the fridge? Yes, ma'am. Do they do these things? They do not. I mean, they do sometimes, or they will, but it's usually after like the fourth or fifth, yes, ma'am, when I'm finally like, oh my God, are you actually going to do this? Or it's after they've left or they've gone outside or upstairs or whatever. And I'm like, do you remember anything that you were supposed to do for me? I do truly believe that they have the intentions to help me out, just like they have the intentions of bringing everything that they're supposed to school and the intentions of remembering when they're scheduled for volunteer hours or when their meetings are. They just literally cannot remember anything. And let's not leave out the emotions. Oh, the emotions, right? One of the things that I hear the most, well, okay, in addition to the forgetfulness, which is probably the thing I hear the most, but in addition to forgetfulness, the thing that I probably hear the most from moms is about emotional outbursts. Now, okay, wait. So outbursts probably sounds more aggressive than we mean, but it's that type of behavior, right? The emotions that just come out of nowhere. And then if you just let them be, they're gone as fast as they came, right? It's in those moments when we totally want to lose our shit. But it's in those moments when we are instead practicing the pause, right? That we need to remind ourselves that we can practice the pause. And well, they can't really. It's normal. It's their brain. It's just not fully developed yet. But I know we hear this all of the time. But what does it actually mean? I mean, they look fully developed, right? They look like adults. How can you tell me that the 6'1", 4.3 GPA man child that I'm looking at doesn't have a fully developed brain? It sure seems like it must be developed. I know I for sure wouldn't be able to pull off A's anymore. I mean, I can't remember why I walked upstairs. But that memory issue right there is a whole different topic. Today, we're going to have a conversation about the teenage brain. And we're going to try to understand a bit more about why they do some of the things that they do. And no, it may feel like they do it to make us crazy, but they're not. They can't help it. I mean, yes, there are other things that they are totally solely doing to make us crazy, but we'll have to talk about those at a different time. We're talking about the ones that they're not doing on purpose. So today we'll have a conversation about what their brains aren't fully developed, what that really means. We'll talk about some common ways that the lack of brain development manifests itself in things that are frustrations to us. And we'll talk about how, of course, we can better handle it. Okay, so obviously, we all know that the teenage years are clearly a period of huge growth and change. They're changing physically and psychologically. Sometimes it feels like daily, right? Well, central to this transformative phase that they're in is the development of their brain. And because of this, they're undergoing changes that influence their behavior, their emotions, and their cognitive abilities. I'm hoping that if we can look a bit and understand this brain development a little bit more, then maybe we can understand some of these challenges that we have, and it can help us in our communication with them and our relationships with them. But let's start with the brain itself. Okay. So the teenage brain, it undergoes like a series of changes throughout this period that contributes to how their cognitive development functions, their emotional regulation, and how their social skills develop. A primary aspect of adolescent brain development is what's called synaptic pruning. It's basically the process where any unnecessary connections between the neurons in their brains are eliminated so that the efficiency of the neural pathways is optimized. Going through this process allows the brain to become more specialized and to become better at processing information. This helps them improve their cognitive abilities and their thought processes. So basically, it's like if your brain was a garden, okay? And the connections between your brain cells are like the plants in that garden. So childhood and the teenage years would be like the rainy springtime. So like right now, okay, for us at least in the South, the brain, like my garden, is constantly growing and growing and making new connections, just like the plants are sprouting and growing in my garden. Synaptic pruning is like the process of weeding in a garden, something that I desperately need to go out and do. But as you grow and you learn, your brain creates more connections between neurons. Some of these connections are strong and important, and others are not so much. And so synaptic pruning is the brain's way of weeding out the weaker or the less important connections to make the brain more efficient and more streamlined. So it's how the brain eliminates the unnecessary connections and strengthens the important ones. This is super important because it helps the brain function more effectively by getting rid of what it doesn't need and instead focusing on what's essential for learning and memory. Unfortunately, in the short term, as this process is actually happening, memory is one of the things that is negatively impacted. Totally ironic, right? But long term, it's for the best. I mean, and we don't have a choice anyway. Our brains just kind of do it. So, all right. What else? Okay. So, another critical component of teenage brain development is the development of the prefrontal cortex. So, the region that is responsible for those, what are called those higher order cognitive functions, which are important ones like decision making, impulse control, long term planning. Now, does that sound familiar too? So, things that our teens are also not very good at, right? Decision making. I'm hungry. Well, what do you want? I don't know. Do you want a smoothie? I don't know. A sub? I don't know. Yogurt? I don't know. A protein bar? Chicken nuggets? I don't know. I don't know. Or which college do you want to go to, right? Decisions are not teens' strong suits, nor is impulse control or long-term planning, right? Well, it's during adolescence that their prefrontal cortex undergoes its significant changes, which are the ones that impact our ability to regulate emotions and think critically and consider the consequences of our actions. So, this process that is currently happening to our teens' brains is what can lead to behaviors that we might characterize as impulsive or risk taking, and it leads to emotions that we might even consider to be excessive or volatile. So essentially, we're frustrated. Yeah, but it's their brains. So let's have a quick chat about those behaviors that do frustrate us that we can attribute to this brain development. Okay. So, first, my favorite and yours, the forgetfulness. Our teens frequently show their forgetfulness when it comes to completing tasks or remembering appointments or responsibilities. You're in charge of picking up your sister. I mean, unless, of course, you forget or you decide to take a nap and not think to set an alarm, no biggie. She's cool with just hanging out in a parking lot somewhere. No big deal. And realistically, this is a big source of frustration to us and a source of conflict with them. How often do we get angry and then it even causes a much bigger issue than it probably should because they forget to do something that they're supposed to, right? I get it. Totally makes us crazy. We told them to do it. How are they ever supposed to be functioning adults if they can't remember simple things like this, right? Well, what if we instead considered that this forgetfulness is actually linked to the immaturity of their prefrontal cortex, which, because it is still developing, causes them to struggle with organizing information and with prioritizing information. And so, as a result, they come across as being scattered or disorganized. And then on the other side, you have us, right? We're super structured, we're super organized, we're super consistent because we have no choice. We must be structured and organized and consistent because our life demands it from us. But those two things put together and bam, recipe for disaster. Well, that might be a little bit dramatic, but maybe a recipe for conflict at least. Okay, so second, impulsivity. Yes, right? Teenagers are notorious for being prone to impulsive decision making and risk taking behaviors. Well, that is due to heightened activity in their brain's reward centers, primarily in their limbic system. So, what this means is that when the activity in their brain's reward centers is heightened, it actually brings them more pleasure or more satisfaction than it does compared to adults. So, the same sources of enjoyment or of pleasure have a stronger effect on them than they do on us. And so this can lead to their impulsivity because they may be more likely to act on their impulses or on their desires without thinking about the consequences as much as we would. So, in other words, when something feels really good to them, they may be more likely to just go for it without fully considering the risks or the long-term effects like we would because their brains are still developing and their reward centers are more sensitive. And so this increased impulsivity can manifest itself in behaviors that seem to us to be reckless or irresponsible. And frighteningly, it does mean that teens may act on impulse without fully considering potential consequences. And what does this do? Well, it scares the shit out of us, right? And again, it is totally frustrating because it appears like they completely lack foresight. They completely lack judgment, which realistically, yes, they do lack. But again, not really their fault. It's their brain. So is it their fault? Well, yeah, but. And third, the emotions, or at least the intensity of their emotions. Once again, those changes in the limbic system. So the limbic system is the area of our brain that, yes, like we said, is part of the reward center, but it also regulates our emotions and our responses to stress. So as a result of these changes, they can experience intense emotions or mood swings, or, and I love this one because, oh my God, do we see this one? A heightened sensitivity to social cues. Gasp, right? That one hits so hard because think about all of the damn drama that our teens get sucked into. And what does so very much of that drama come from? A heightened sensitivity to social cues. Bingo. So yes, this emotional volatility can lead to conflicts with us and with others, especially with each other, because what happens when you put a group of people together who all have heightened sensitivity to social cues? Now, that one, I do feel like it is not dramatic to say is a recipe for disaster. Middle school, high school, oh my God, yes. But definitely, it leads to challenges in communication and challenges in conflict resolution because they just struggle to regulate their emotions effectively. And they have a really hard time expressing themselves in a constructive manner. And fourth, time management or lack thereof, probably. Teens very often struggle with time management skills, which causes them to procrastinate and be disorganized, miss deadlines. We blame them like they do it on purpose, right? Like they don't care. They're irresponsible. They don't prioritize things. They don't have any respect for things. Well, again, yeah, but this difficulty actually comes from the ongoing development of the executive functions in their prefrontal cortex. And this is the part that gives them the abilities such as planning and prioritizing and self-regulation. So yes, it is horribly frustrating to see them struggle to meet their deadlines or to stay on top of their commitments. but they're just not there yet. So, what can we do? How can we better handle these situations when they come up? As I always tell you, just understanding why they are doing what they're doing, it does help. Understanding what the developmental changes are that are taking place in their brain is so important for us to try to better navigate our relationships. If we can at least recognize that so many of our frustrations stem simply from the natural processes of brain development, we can start to better approach these situations with some degree of empathy and patience and support. And first and foremost, always on my list, communicate with them. If we can encourage open and honest communication with them, it helps us to navigate the conflicts as they inevitably come up. It helps us to better address the misunderstandings that we are certain to have. And we can build a better degree of trust with them. So, if we can create a safe space for our teens to express their thoughts and their emotions, it always fosters a deeper understanding and a better connection between us, which of course helps to facilitate more meaningful dialogue and a mutual respect. And second, set clear expectations of them. If we can be better at establishing clear expectations and boundaries and consequences from the get-go, it can help them in making responsible decisions and developing self-discipline. So think about it. Just the very simplest. Can you please take out the trash? Yes, ma'am. Awesome. Thanks. Now, he may take out the trash eventually, possibly. But it may not get to that, right? We, or maybe another adult with a fully developed brain, may take it out. Or we may feel that now it's our job to remind him a few times until we sound like a total naggy bitch, right? But he is more likely to actually take the trash out if instead we're clear about it. So maybe it's by creating overall chores or responsibilities that are just all the time within the house, like it is your job to take out the trash. Or it can just be an overall, when the trash bin no longer closes, whoever it is that is responsible for taking out the trash. The consequences might be I'll be angry, or you'll lose a privilege. Or in our house, the dogs will get into it and will make a mess, which will actually make me really angry. And then they know that will ultimately lead to more work because then they're going to need to clean up the trash and take it out anyways. So maybe it's setting clear expectations and repercussions. So something like, can you please take out the trash right now? Because if you leave it here, the dogs are going to get into it and then you're going to need to clean it up from the floor. So which way of communicating do you think of those is clearer? Can you take out the trash? Or can you take out the trash right now? Because if you leave it here, the dogs are going to get into it and then you're going to need to clean it up from the floor. I'm guessing the second one has. So which way of communicating do you think is going to happen? The one that is clear and specific, right? When I say put your laundry away, that's pretty vague and open-ended. But when I say, I need you to go upstairs and put your laundry away now because I need to be able to get into the laundry room to wash the sheets. Or I need you to put your laundry away before your friends come over because it's literally all over the floor and they cannot come over with it there. None of that is threatening, right? None of it is demanding or mean or harsh, but it's clear. It is purposeful and it is precise. It does have some degree of consequence and it demonstrates a specific expectation that I have of them. And when I put it that way, it's a lot more likely to get done. Now, my husband, he'll tell them to go clean the pool and then he leaves. Do you think the pool gets cleaned? It does not get cleaned. Then he comes home and he's frustrated that it's not cleaned. I don't know why they don't listen to me. They listen to you. They only do the things when you ask them to. Well, I don't think it's me necessarily. But when I say something like, your father asked you to go clean the pool, please go do that now so that you can be finished before he gets home. He'll be angry and he'll not want your friends to come over. They do it, right? Okay, wait, no, that last part isn't true. I mean, the part of doing it is true, yes. But I mean, all of it was true except for the, what I say, he'll be angry and not have your friends come over part. Let's be honest here. We're all friends. He'll let them come over. The reality is it would be, please do it now before he comes home, because if it's not cleaned, he's going to pout. I mean, he will. He'll pout like a toddler. But anyway, as I was saying, it's not me. I don't have a magic touch. I just know how to communicate with them in a clear way that gets them to recognize time frames and importance and consequences, those things. And let's establish that it's not like I'm gatekeeping this information from him. I have shared it time and time again, but what do I know, right? Well, what I do know is that you are much more likely to get information across to developing teens' brains if you can be consistent in your communication of your expectations to provide structure and support for them in order for them to be able to better understand what boundaries we have and what expectations we have of them. Okay, third. A good way to better work with them and their not quite developed brains is, ironically, to promote their independence. So encourage them to take on responsibilities and encourage them to make decisions and to solve problems on their own. This actually helps foster their independence and their self-confidence in their decision making. So even little things can give them the opportunity to practice their decision making and problem solving skills for when they actually need to use their decision making and problem solving skills. Things like letting them tell you what time their curfew should be that night. Of course, you're not going to go and let them set it at something crazy, but maybe you are thinking 11 and they say 12 and you give in to 12 because they explain how and why that would be better or a more reasonable time. But empowering them in that way makes them take ownership of their actions and their decisions. My daughter, okay? My daughter's like probably many of y'all's daughters. And again, we're friends. I must be honest with you. Mine too here, okay? So my daughter's shorts and my shorts probably are usually what you would qualify or would be qualified as too short. Yes. My theory is their legs. I have legs. Shocking, I know, but they're legs. And I'm not going to be ashamed that I have legs. Well, my daughter is also not ashamed that she has legs. And most days, her shorts are quite short. Okay, fine. It's the style. She wore a knee-length plaid skirt every day for 10 years of Catholic school. And this doesn't break any rules. And well, they're just legs. But some days she comes down and even I'm like, really? Really? But by empowering her to wear what she wants within reason, of course, means that on the days that are not within reason, the days that she's making a poor fashion choice for school, whether they're much too short or they're too tight on her, or the top is too short, or it's too tight to wear with said short shorts, I let her take a minute to reassess her choice. I mean, yes, ultimately, I'm still in charge, of course, and I'm not letting her wear that outfit outside. But by empowering her each day and giving her that freedom, when I do implore her to take a second look and think about that choice, and if it fits the way that it should, she always recognizes it and changes. Yes, she does know ultimately there's a consequence that she's not leaving the house in it. But I don't even need to say it because the consequence is there and she's been given the autonomy thus far and she's given the autonomy to make the decision that day. Does that make sense? Okay. And last, our empathy and our understanding. is so very critical in these situations to make them just go better overall. If we recognize the challenges and the frustrations that are inherent in dealing with these situations, and if we can be empathetic and understand where our teens are coming from and why it's the way that it is, the overall vibe is so much better. The frequency of our interactions and our homes will just be higher. If we can recognize that their behavior is making us crazy, but then add that yes, but on it. Yes, but it's not really their fault. Yes, but their brains aren't there yet. If we could dismiss their flaws and others' flaws as easily as we can dismiss our own strengths, can you even imagine, right? I mean, I know that I can come up with 3 things that irritate me about everyone around me without that yes, but. I can come up with 3 things that I don't like about myself without any yes, but. I can do those things a lot easier than I can come up with 3 good things about myself without adding the yes, but. All right, y'all. Okay, let's land this plane. What's the bottom line? When does this end? Will it end? Will it ever get better? Well, typically, according to the American Psychological Association, these issues that begin in puberty and continue until an average of the mid-20s, like 25. Yep. Some things are complete sooner and some are complete later, like 30. But some people develop sooner and yes, others later, but their standard is mid-20s. Pretty much this is what we're going with as a consensus. So you might as well practice your patience because the road is long, y'all. Thank you so much for listening today and always. If you've enjoyed the show, enjoyed this episode or any others, please share it with a friend. That's how we're going to grow our community. If you're not already, please follow me on socials everywhere. It's Reframing Me. And on Facebook, join the Facebook group, Reframing Me, a podcast community. Until next time, be well and communicate.